Good evening, everyone. So today again we are here with our beloved alumnus. So about Amrita Thakur, a passionate HR leader with over a decade of experience with leadership companies like Capgemini, Novartis, and AXA Insurance. Amrita's specialty lies in the area of learning and development, talent management, performance management, coaching and mentoring, digital learning, diversity and inclusion. Amrita has recently joined the logistic giant Aramex in the capacity of global talent manager, managing a talent pool of over 13,000 employees across 60 countries. And that's really impressive. So Amrita, I welcome you. And now the platform is all yours to talk to our students. And I guess they're very eager to know about your journey. And so from the college to your journey till now, I think they will be really interested to know about it. So the platform is all yours.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. And yes, I mean, I'm all of that, plus a new mom as well. So
congratulations.
Yes, thank you. So every day, is a new challenge to me at the moment. And this is where I would actually like to start, challenges are a part of life. But what is important is how you deal with them, right? So one option is to withdraw, run away from it, and try to believe that they do not exist at all. However, the other way is to be resilient and to face them and with innovative solutions, right? And it is completely okay if you're not able to, resolve all of them at the first go. And honestly, I would say that sometimes it is actually good that you're failing, because it helps you to build your grit. I think this is something that I took away with me when I was graduating from ISBM. I had an enriching experience at ISBM, not only because the quality of the education that I received, but also because of the exposure that I got. And why I say exposure is because I used to lead the branding and admission cell at ISBM Kolkata. And this kind of gave me a lot of opportunities to interact with a lot of external stakeholders. I don't know if some of you know what the cell does. So the objective of the students wing is basically to promote ISBNM in the undergraduate market, so that we can attract the right kind of talent into the institute. It was, for me, it was almost like a part-time job that I had undertaken along with my studies. And this opportunity helped me in thinking in different ways. So yes, I was studying as a student, but I also used this opportunity in broadening my thoughts. So on one hand, I was thinking about the value proposition of the institute that the institute was offering. And on the other hand, I was also thinking about the positioning of the institute in the students' market. And I really treat this opportunity as a job. So I used to think about this, role as a job. And I think you should do too if you get the opportunity to join one of the student cell. I don't know if they still exist or not, but
no, completely.
Oh,
from
that's
the placement cell, the alumni cell, the CRC, digital DGI, shortly LSDC. They have variety of cells. So I think the students will be very eager.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is a great opportunity for any student who's trying to embark on a journey where studies are important, but side by side, the experiences that you gather are equally important. So I would really suggest that you go ahead and join one of these cells, because it will give you immense amount of exposure. And anyway, so coming back to my experience about leading the, branding and admission cell. So that kind of involved speaking to large groups of people when we used to have the student seminars. And I actually utilized this opportunity. I grabbed this opportunity to develop my public speaking capabilities. I was seeing my confidence like as a pot of jar. With each passing session, I would like slowly try to fill it up. So, there were times, and I would tell you, to be honest, there were times when I felt extremely stretched between studies as well as the responsibilities of the cell. But what it taught me, what it did to me, it gave me the opportunity to understand how can I multitask, how to, manage priorities, and also how to manage expectations. I think this is the USP of ISBM, that it lets students face challenges from day one, which in turn prepares them to manage similar situations when you're actually transitioning into the corporate world. I think the whole story that I wanted to say here, the key message that I wanted to deliver is that, you know, every challenge that comes your way, treat every challenge as an opportunity, you know, and grab every opportunity to be visible. Because in the end, it will help you to develop. And if you're not thinking about your continuous development, then you're already a step behind your competition. So please keep this in mind when you're starting your journey, your MBA journey, because this is the first step towards your professional career, right? Another key thing that I would like to highlight is that ISBM, you know, kind of instilled in me the ability to push the boundaries. And I will tell you why I say that. For my summer internship, I was placed at CESC. So this is the Calcutta Electric Supply Corporation. Great opportunity. I mean, you know, being in the city, I was so grateful and I felt a great sense of achievement. However, ironically, by the third day of my internship, I had realized that this is not what I wanted. I mean, it was a perfect setup for anyone who would be, you know, who would want to be in their city, be with their parents, you know, help with a little bit of paperwork while at work, and also get paid, right? But this feeling of perfect, I think this was the feeling that kind of drove me insane. And I could very well understand that there was very little for me to learn from this experience. And this is when I decided to quit. And this was the time, this is the time that I'm talking about. It is 2008-10. So I belong to the batch of 2008-10. And this was at a time when my friends were still struggling to secure an internship for HR. That's when I decided to quit. And let me tell you, I did upset a lot of people in doing so. And I almost thought this is the moment where I would tell myself, oh, did I do the right thing or not? And then I thought, okay, let me take a chance. And then I kind of decided to approach Dr. Kumar to see if, you know, if he could help me to get a more meaningful opportunity where I could at least have some, you know, things to learn. And then, as luck would have it, LG Electronics offered an internship opportunity at that time. And of course, I could not wait to embrace it, right? So, but it meant that I had to move out of my comfort zone, move out of Kolkata, you know, be away from my parents, cook my own food, wash my own clothes, and then travel from Delhi to Greater Noida on a daily basis. Not so perfect for someone who has always been an overly protected child, right? But here I was, you know, faced with two choices. So the first choice was to go for the perfect setup where I would not learn much, and the not so perfect setup where I would have the host of opportunities to explore, right? And I chose the latter, and I'm really glad that I did. And I want to tell you that this is what ISBM does for you. And this is, you know, you have to come to ISBM with that open mind to embrace all of this that ISBM gives you, really. And then having said that, I would really like to stress on the fact that, you know, ISBM is there to support you and of course, to facilitate the process of you being successful. But you have to remember that it is you who should have the drive, the passion, and the willingness to make it happen, you know. It is actually you who can make the change happen and ensure that it sticks. I will tell you something. I'm an English literature graduate, and I was a topper of my batch. So the natural progression for me was to get enrolled in a master's program for literature, right? And that is exactly what I did. So I was so proud of myself when I saw my name appear in the first selection list of Calcutta University. I was within the first 15, you know, to be, you know, kind of there on the list and within the region. And I was very happy with my decision. I very happily went with the flow, got enrolled, and diligently followed that path for almost 2 weeks. And then there was this day when I was sitting in one of the classrooms of Calcutta University, and we were being taught the history of English literature. And it was a very, very dark day. I don't know, these things, you know, keep coming into my life. I have like moments of epiphany. So there was day, very dark, dark clouds pouring all across the city, and it was not the best day, And then I had this moment where I asked myself, do I really belong here? And the answer was a bold and strong no.
No.
And that's the day that I realized that maybe, I belong to a more dynamic or a fast-paced kind of environment. And maybe corporate was the way forward for me and not really literature, right? So I was there in ISBM. And of course, as I said, ISBM facilitated the process of me getting to where I wanted to be. But if I hadn't made the decision that day, of course, I wouldn't be here today speaking with all of you. So that's the key message that I wanted to deliver with my story here. Remember that ISBM is such an institute that will always try to prepare you for the challenges. And the experiences that you will gather at ISBM will definitely help you to face the challenges with a bold heart. But what you'll always find is that the first day when you're actually walking into that corporate field, it will always be overwhelming. And don't question yourself for that. It is always overwhelming. And my feelings were no different. So the company that I started with was Capgemini Kolkata. So with a lot of, excitement and enthusiasm, I was walking into the gates of Capgemini and I thought I was fully prepared. I knew it all and I would just go there and deliver. But then this was not the fact, right? When you go into that field, you realize that there's a lot to learn and this is a whole different world. But for me, I think the good part was that there were a lot of HR graduates who had joined at the same time. So I was not really alone. So we were supposed to go through this, weeks of training, and then of course be assessed, and then we would be picked for some teams within the HR function. However, what happened was within the first few days, I was picked up for the learning and development function, and that's how I started my career in L&D. But I did not. To say that, I was trying to mention that, I did not complete the full weeks of training and I was only picked up within the first few days. So that kind of, at that point, I had kind of mixed feelings because on one hand, I was going away from this group that kind of gave me a sense of belonging and I was my happy place within the organization. But at the same time, I felt very proud that I must have done something right that made them pick me up from that group, right? So from then on, my professional journey started. And after being at Capgemini for some time, I had moved cities and I joined Novartis in Hyderabad. Within a week of my joining Novartis, I was sent on an international project to Basel in Switzerland. So this particular project involved, of course, staying in Basel for some time and also frequent traveling post that. And, I felt like after my first stint in Switzerland, I came back as a completely new person. And I managed to learn so many different skills just from that experience. I will tell you, they say that tough situations build strong people. And that then does not come from what you can do. It actually comes from overcoming the things that you once thought you could not. So that was literally the situation with me. In my long stay in Basel, there was a time when I had absolutely no place to stay, as the entire city was booked for an international fair and the only option for me was to move to Zurich, which is like a 2-hour long train ride from Basel and back. But of course, it was a new country. It was my first experience out of the country, and that did not seem to be a very favorable option. So I chose to stay back in Basel. But what did that do to me? I was sitting in my office with my luggage, and I didn't know where to go. So there was a day where I was really secretly hoping that the work never got over because I didn't know where to go. I was left alone with my luggage in the office, right? Yeah, it was very difficult. Why that seemed to be difficult? Because Indian kids, I have a feeling that Indian kids are a bit overprotected, to be honest.
True.
They always have everything that they need, and sometimes even the things that they don't need. So it becomes a bit challenging for these kids to kind of face the reality that they will even not have the basics if they are not working for it. we have this sense of entitlement, right? Which is always there with us. Now, why did I say that I came back as a new person before? This is because of this experience. This experience helped me question my sense of entitlement. And I was all alone there. So I had enough time on my hand to kind of reflect on who I truly was. What did I stand for? And this is when I started thinking about my personal brand. You know, what impression did people have of me? What are the values that I believe in? What are some of the words that I would like myself to be associated with? And what really makes me stand out of this crowd? You know? And I knew very clearly, of course, it was not in a day, but I kind of developed that thought. And I knew very clearly in my mind that I wanted to be known as a courageous woman who is, you know, always willing to take risks, speak her mind, bring in a lot of value to any job that she is doing while acting with the highest degree of integrity, you know. And I don't know if you have, you know, heard this before, but Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO of Amazon, he says that your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. So that is, you know, something that you should always keep in mind. Your personal brand is basically what makes you different or unique and what makes you stand out of the crowd, right? So this brand really helps to express your unique value to an employer or to your customer at a later stage. And it really kind of differentiates your skills, your experiences, and your ability from others, from your colleagues, from your peers, etc. You know. So what does really personal branding involve? Of course, it involves managing your reputation, managing your style, managing your look, your attitude, and of course, most importantly, your skill set. And if I really had to kind of put it in very simple words, I would say that personal branding is about making yourself known for what you want to be known for. So think about those things, what you want to be known for, and try to build up that brand for yourself. I would say that creating this personal brand for yourself should really be an organic process that should start with you thinking about who you want to be, what is your identity, and what is your meaning in life. You know, what do you want to do in your life? Give it all of your positive energy. Do what you love, you know, and try to continuously improve yourself. But in doing so, one thing that you should always remember and you should always consider is that your personal brand should be authentic. You know, it should always, at all points, reflect your true character. Okay, so I want to give you some, questions that you kind of can ask yourself to kind of start reflecting on who you are and what can you do and how can you build your brand.
That's great.
So the first thing that you can, consider is to, of course, identify and define what you're actually trying to achieve. So what is your objective in life? Where do you want to go from here? Yes, you have enrolled in ISBM, but what is your ultimate goal? So this requires you to think about your skill sets, think about your interests, think about what you specialize in, your uniqueness, and the activities that really make you happy. So start by, asking yourself some questions to unleash kind of your, let's say, your super skill, okay? So you can ask questions like, what are the strengths that others acknowledge in me, okay? And when I'm working in a team situation, what are these roles that I seek to fulfill? Am I the leader in the team? Am I someone who is actually doing it? Am I the doer? Or am I someone who is kind of, taking a step back and planning the things accordingly? Am I the planner in the team? When I'm faced with, overwhelming problem, what are my go-to skills? What do I do? Do I use negotiation? Do I use my influencing power? Or do I use, just power, my, influence? And what are my motivating skills? So maybe, for example, I'll give you an example. Maybe I'm great at Excel and that's what I enjoy doing. Or maybe, I'm great at project management. So that gets me excited. And what are my burnout skills? Maybe I'm very bad at delegating. I might want to delegate, but that kind of tires me. So think about all of those that kind of either motivate you or burn you out. Once you have answers to these questions, try to find out, which strengths or which skills will be most helpful for you to achieve your career goals, and which are the skills that are missing. So once you have your goal and once you have answered this question, see what skills you have and what skills are you still trying to build and have not had the opportunity to practice yet. Focus here, focus on building on the skills that you've not had the opportunity to build on. Once you have done that, the next step would be to reflect on your value. So what is your value system? What is your personal compass that kind of gives you the direction to make your choices and directs your behaviors, right? And the final thing that I wanted to say is reflect on your passion. What really makes you come alive, and when you really, kind of are integrating your passions into what you do, when you're really passionate about doing something, then it is not only you who are engaged in doing it, you also create a powerhouse of enthusiasm and engagement for the people who are around you. So there's this energy that kind of gets disseminated to everyone who is around, right? Well, I think till now we have talked a lot about what we can do, what the questions we can ask ourselves, how we can reflect. But one thing that you need to remember is about the external lens. So you also need to have the perspective of others. How are others perceiving you? To validate your perception, right? What you think is right. But one thing that you need to be very careful about is when you are actually inviting other perspective, you need to be very courageous and you have to be vulnerable at some point to kind of allow that discomfort. If you're kind of getting a negative kind of feedback, maybe somebody is telling you that, oh, you're very rude, but you have to allow that feedback to come to you. You cannot be defensive about it. So allow that discomfort to come to you, because it is others' viewpoints which will help you in kind of assessing your reputation without any form of bias. So I would say that, try to get as many as perspectives as you can, because it will give you kind of a clearer picture of who you are and will also help you become a little bit objective about yourself, because all of us are very proud of ourselves, right? We have done great things in life which we are very proud of, but it is always good to have the perspective of the other person. Okay. Now, the last thing that I would say is actually when and how you should use this personal branding. Now you've gathered all these thoughts, you've reflected on all these points. Now you're here to design your authentic personal brand promise, right? Now you can think of it as an elevator pitch. So, when you're meeting new people, one of the most frequently or commonly asked question is what you do, correct? Because that is like a conversation starter. Also, you would see during your interviews, when you start with your, placement season, you will see during your interviews, the first question you are generally asked is, tell me something about yourself. That's a standard question that you will be asked all throughout your life, right? So I would say that this is the right time for you to launch your personal brand statement. So you keep this personal brand statement ready with you. Think about who you are, what your values are, what are your passions, what would you like to do, what is your meaning to life. When you have all of these thoughts gathered and you already have your personal brand statement ready, then this is the right time for you to launch it. Again, I think 3 guiding principles to reflect on: what you stand for, what you believe in, what value do you offer. And there you have your personal brand statement, right?
I think the students should note it down, all these things, because I'm telling you, I hit the campus placements, and the first thing that every corporate asks you, tell me about yourself. And over here, this is your chance to impress them by just what Amrita was talking about, your personal statement. So I think you should do that.
Yeah. And sometimes we tend to kind of read out our CVs, which is fine. I mean, we are trying to kind of reflect on what we have done, but you have to remember that your CV is really in front of that recruiter. They can see what you have done so far. But what is this extra information that you're trying to give to your customer or recruiter or whoever is sitting in front of you? What is not there in that CV that you want to tell them, right? So, but one last thing, remember that your personal branding has actually no value unless you make it a reality. So you have to really live it. So live your personal brand. It's not just a statement that is lying on a piece of paper, right? So you really have to live your personal brand. And I think the easiest way to do that would be just be authentic. So just be yourself, just reflect your true character. Yeah.
That's
I don't
great.
know if there are any questions or any comments coming in or not, because I can't see them at the moment.
There were some congratulations to you.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe guys, if you have some questions or you have some thoughts, insights, you can just let us know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So Vaibhav, so you want to continue or want to take, because what happens is once we complete and then we take the question and answer round. So how do you want to?
Okay, so let me continue with the rest of the flow, and then maybe we can take all the questions at the end of the session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally up.
Okay. So now you know that what to do and how to go about your branding, etc. Now you have to be mindful of the fact that you will also be kind of exposed to different corporate cultures or organization cultures, right? While your brand will kind of keep evolving over time. So once you have done this statement, it is not like a static statement that will be with you for the rest of your life. You will obviously have different experiences in your life. You will come across different people. You will gather new skills. So of course, your brand will keep evolving over time. But what is important is do not allow it to get diluted with the influence of the different organization cultures. You really have to hold your own, you know. And I will tell you, in my experience, I've had the opportunity to have worked with 4 different companies across 4 different industries. And I have been exposed to different cultures. Now, I can give you a little sneak peek on the culture that kind of I have experienced myself. So, if I start with Capgemini, as you know, it is an IT consulting firm, right? So the heart of the business is all about technology and digital transformation, and the culture of the company also reflects a lot of that. When I was with Capgemini, some of the tools and the technologies that we were using in the field of learning, were not even heard of in some of the other companies that I worked for at a later stage. So you can imagine, what kind of advancement I was kind of exposed to. Since it is a service-based business, a lot of the company is also about customer centricity and delivering a consistent experience to the customers. This is why you will see that there is a lot of standards, there are processes, there are procedures in place. However, that does not mean that the employees are not encouraged to innovate. They're encouraged to be creative, and test the solutions. And the key is to fail fast so that they do not spend a lot of time in thinking about the next possible solution. And in my opinion, if somebody is a fresh graduate, which I was, it will be great to start her or his career with a company like Capgemini, because it provides all the necessary structure and the guidance that you would need to be successful in your first step into the corporate world. My next move was to Novartis, completely different industry, pharmaceutical. And just given the nature of the industry, I feel that the general culture that Novartis kind of cultivated was the culture of care. It always had the well-being of its patients guiding some of its like major decisions, and for sure that care got reflected in terms of the employees as well. Innovation, of course, was at the heart of everything that Novartis does, supported by quality, collaboration, courage, and integrity. I think from my personal experience, I can say that when I joined Novartis, I felt like a sense of liberation. And I had almost decided that this is the company that I will retire from. However, there were other plans in place. Anyway, I will come back to that. So Novartis is a company that offers people a lot of empowerment and treats people with a lot of respect. And that promotes long and strong relationships based on that trust. The company really believes in the creativity of its people. I think I can give you an example. When I had joined Novartis, I was a one woman army. I was the only person recruited for that particular project. And then when I said that I needed a team with me to support me in what I was doing, the company did not hesitate in investing. Of course, I had justified, business proposals, but this is the company that I'm talking about. And as a company, it always promotes talent movements all across geography. So I can give you an example of one of my colleagues who I had worked with in Hyderabad in Novartis is actually a part of Novartis Prague now. So that is the kind of culture that Novartis kind of fosters. Yeah, so coming back to my plan of retiring from Novartis, that never happened. So of course, it was not a reality, but that's when we decided, as a family to move to Dubai. And in Dubai, my first professional stint was with AXA Insurance. Again, a completely different industry. I was with AXA for almost 6 years. And, for AXA, I think it needed a lot from AXA to keep me for that long after my experience with Novartis, because I was wowed with Novartis. But I still stayed with AXA for almost 6 years, so which meant a lot. And
Pretty long stint.
Sorry?
It's a pretty long stint with the AXA.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where I was coming to, because of course after my experience with Novartis, I had like my expectations up here, and then I was like, okay, maybe I'm trying my waters, testing the waters. Let's see where it goes. But I kind of ended up being with the AXA for almost 6 years, because AXA has a very clear culture statement. They're very clear with where do they want their culture to go and how do they want to manage it. It believes in the culture of 3 E's. So it means enable, empower, and engage. It really believes in the continuous development of its people, and hence you will see that learning and development is a top agenda in the organization. I mean, it knows how to attract, develop, and retain its key talent. And I have actually very closely experienced this, since I had the ambition to go when I was at AXA. I myself was supported with personal development opportunities each and every year at AXA. I mean, I can tell you that the last professional qualification that I completed with AXA costed the company 45,000 dirhams, which is approximately, let's say, 9 lakh rupees in Indian terms. So that's what the company has invested in me in 1 year. And I'm talking about continuous development in each year that I was with AXA. So apart from development, the company also strives to provide, the right tools to enable its people, and also empowerment is a very big driver of the culture. Things like less bureaucracy in decision making, trusting the employees to, kind of act in the best interest of the company. These are all the key pillars of AXA. Anyway, so moving on. So that's where I was with AXA. But then now, after having my 6 years, well, almost 6 years, I recently joined the UAE-based logistics giant. It's called Aramex. I'm not sure if some of you have heard about it or not. Well, I'm still a newbie here, and I think it's a little bit early for me to kind of comment, but I can tell you that what really attracted me to this company, I think it was the focus on innovation. I do not know if you know the company or some of its products. So there is a service called Shop and Ship. So it basically allows its customers to shop from anywhere in the world. So different countries you can shop from, and then allow Aramex to deliver that product to you while all the groundwork is done by Aramex. So you don't have to worry about. You just buy the product online somewhere, let's say in the US, and you just sit and relax. So Aramex will pick up the product from that country and deliver it to your house. So that's the innovation that we are talking about, right? And of course, this is like boosted the global e-commerce industry to a great extent. And another example that I can talk about, when I'm reflecting on the culture of Aramex is that, the people I have interacted with so far have been with the company for a very long period of time. And I'm talking about like 10 years, 15 years, 17 years. And I think that says a lot about the company's focus on people. And that kind of gives me some kind of believe that I've taken the right decision. And it's normal for any good companies. They will always generally take care of its people because it is the most valuable asset that they have, right? But they will only invest in you when they see the potential in you to grow. What you need to think about is how can I show my passion? How can I display my willingness? And how can I build that brand of mine that puts me into the pool of those high potential candidates that the company is thinking about? And I think I would want to stop here because I've spoken a lot, but I want to leave you with the thought that don't try to fit in, when you can stand out.
Plus, I think you have totally moved from your comfort zone. I mean, you have worked in so many different industries altogether. One is into this Novartis, totally different pharmaceutical, then you insurance and now logistics, and you started from IT. So how has been, how does it feel that, okay, now moving out of my comfort zone, I need to do that. And I think if you have that passion to grow, you need to move out from your comfort zone. So you have, I think all the girls who are here, even the men who in our participants list, our batch students batch, I think our journey can kind of tell them that you need to move out of the comfort zone.
Absolutely. I think that is the key to growth, because if you are trying to, so there are two choices. One is that I want to be comfortable where I am. That is completely fine. That is a choice that you have, right? But if you choose to grow, then you have to come out of your comfort zone, because if you're being there, in number of years, then you kind of forget to develop yourself. But if you choose to be where you are, then that's completely your choice, and that's fine.
So the questions are coming in. So can we start?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So Vaibhav is asking about any vision on future jobs and what are the corporate requirements in upcoming years like, or how the jobs are going to be in the future. So any vision on the future jobs?
Of course. The way the world has shifted today, of course, the jobs that we had 10 years back are not there anymore. And the jobs that we have today may not be there, 10 years from now, right? So some of the areas that I can instantly think about is, of course, things to do with digital. So you have to be, technologically driven. You have to be digitally savvy. You have to think about what are the areas that you can automate, think about systems and processes. Technology can get you a long way. So that's one. Second will be data. So, a lot of the decisions today is, based on data. And because of all these tools and technologies that we have in place, which also allows us to store a lot of data on the cloud, right? So it is very, very important for us to kind of make sense of all of these data that we have stored somewhere. So someone who has that data kind of mindset, who is able to make sense of it. And along with data comes the competency of analyzing that data. Are you able to make sense of that data or not? So this is in general, I think digital data mindset and the capability to analyze that kind of big pool of data, I would say generally are the way forward. I don't know if your question is more in terms of HR or general, but I can give you a little bit about HR because, of course, I'm from that field. In terms of HR also, I feel these are very, very key competencies to have and are the key jobs going forward. Also, in terms of workforce planning. So, previously as HR professionals, we knew that, these are the 100 employees in the organization. Okay, this person has the risk of loss. Maybe in 2 years, this person is going to move ahead. And then we do the succession planning. We have the succession pipeline in place and we exactly know how to move forward. But here today, we are faced with gig economy, right? So,
yeah.
The people that are working for us in the companies are not permanent employees anymore. They're contractors, they're freelancers. There is a host of options that you can kind of have today. So that kind of complicates the whole scenario a lot. So someone who has that kind of thinking and the background to see how quickly can we move the solutions and how quickly can we have that pipeline in place when, let's say a freelancer is moving out. How do we kind of make that work in the future? That will be key. And also in terms of change management. So if you have seen, 2020 and 2021, the weirdest years in, a lot of years, I would say. So this has actually taught us a lot, right? So many things have changed, and so many things that we believed in are not a reality anymore, which means that the companies are going through a lot of change. So they had to change a lot. So the companies who were really kind of, very, very had like an old mentality of paperwork and people coming to the offices, that they were not agile. So they had to change a lot, right? Now, what is HR's role in all of this? The HR's role is to ensure that all of this change that is happening in the external market is actually reflected in the internal organization as well. And this change is, carried out in a way that is systematic. So I would say that change management will also be a key kind of HR skill to have.
Okay, I hope he got the answer. So Rohan is asking that he always gets confused at last moment when I want to take a risk in my life. Like I want to go for my passion, but sometimes a negative thought comes around my mind and I leave the thought. So how this idea will work or not? So my question is how to handle these thoughts and go ahead. And sometimes you're very positive and sometimes you're like, no, this won't work. So
no, I would say don't let your negative thoughts go away, because your negative thoughts will help you evaluate if you are taking the right decision or not. The key here, I would say that try to break it down. So if you're talking about, let's say, a big decision that you're trying to make and you're really not sure whether, this is the right thing to do or not, try to break it down into smaller tasks. So let's say, I want to move countries. I want to go to US, for example. What does it involve? Now, this is a very big decision, right? And instantly it can give me jitters. Oh, no, maybe this is not the right thing to do. But what does it involve? If I have to move to US, maybe I have to, leave my job. I have to move my family. I have to, I can't see my family back in India so often. So try to break it down and see, what do these things mean to you? If you have a great amount of no's in that decision, then maybe this is not the right decision. But if you see that you have like a almost 60-40 balance of a yes or a no, then go for it.
Okay. Now there's one interesting question from Shreya. Ma'am, what's your personal brand statement?
Oh, I think I shared that already.
Then one question is, you are into learning and development. If you get a chance to hire for your own company, what are the key skills you will look in a candidate?
Sorry, say that again. I missed that.
You are into learning and development. If you get a chance to hire for your own company, what are the key skills you are looking in for the potential candidate?
I think the first skill that I would definitely look for is entrepreneurship, because that means that you're willing to take risks. You are thinking with a business mindset, and you are willing to take that jump. So that is really something that I would look for. I would also look for professionalism, because that is very, very important when you're kind of working in a group situation. How are you dealing with people? How do you treat people? Do you have a lot of respect for the other gender or not? So these are some of the things that I would see. I would also look for the level of tolerance, because if you are, I'll tell you why I say that, because I work in a global kind of a setup, right? I'm working in a situation where I have multiple nationalities working with me. And if someone who is joining my organization is not tolerant of the other nationality or the race or whatever, then that person has immediately failed for me. So those are, I think, the top things that I would look for. Again, depending on the role, that the skill set will be different. But if you talk generally, then yes, those are the things.
Okay. So Rohan is asking, but was it difficult to move from AXA Insurance to Aramax?
Yes. So it was difficult because, I had already made a tough decision to kind of move from Novartis to AXA, which is why I did not want to quickly kind of move out of AXA, because AXA had given me that comfort when I had moved out of Novartis. And when I was moving out of AXA, I had that question constantly in my mind that, is this the right thing that I'm doing? And I was at that juncture in one of the last questions that I answered. So I was that juncture where I was thinking that, is this the right thing to do? Do I really need to do this? And then the answer, the most of the answers to my, broken down list was a yes, because I'll tell you where I was at AXA. So I had already kind of reached a ceiling at AXA, which meant that I was not able to move forward. And for me, that is quite frustrating as a person. Yes, I was enjoying what I was doing, but that meant that I cannot move forward anymore. So that was the guiding principle or the guiding force behind me leaving AXA. But as an organization, yes, I did feel it was a very, very tough decision for me to kind of move out.
Anoop is asking how to grow fast in corporate.
Well, I don't think anyone can answer that question, because it kind of depends on who you are, what you want to be, what is your objective, where do you want to go, right? So I think at this point I can tell you a model that's called GROW model. I don't know if you have heard about it. So basically it talks about what are your goals. So first think about what is my objective in life. What do I want to do? Do I want to be the CEO of a company in 15 years? If that is my goal, then you need to have your path ready for that. So try to answer that question. Next is reality. In the GROW model, R is for reality. So it talks about what is the current reality? Where am I today? What skills do I have today? And what are the skills that I need to develop? Okay. O is opportunities. So what are the opportunities, or what are the options that are in front of me? What can I do? So I already know what is my objective. I already know what my reality is. And now I need to think about what are the opportunities that I kind of can utilize to develop the skills that I don't have yet. And then W is the willpower or the way forward. Am I willing to make a commitment to these actions, and by when? So always, when you are kind of, so this is a self-coaching technique. I would really encourage you to use this technique with yourselves whenever you're faced with a situation where you really don't know where to go or you feel stuck. So to answer your question, I think you should follow this self-coaching model. Ask yourself your objective. Ask yourself where you are today, what your opportunities are, and what is the way forward for you. So I think that is the only way that I can answer this question.
That's really insightful. So Shrishti is asking about, is HR and business analytics a good question, good combination?
Absolutely, go for it, because HR analytics is someone that the world is going forward, towards, because HR has a great deal of data that you need to work with. And unless you have that, analysis kind of a, approach to it, then it will be very difficult, because sometimes we tend to believe that HR is like a softer subject, if I may say so, where you do not need to understand the numbers, where you do not need to understand, kind of analyze any of it, but that is completely a myth. So you have to deal with a lot of numbers. You have to deal with a lot of analysis, dashboards, etc. So it is an excellent combination. Go for it.
Okay. The students are totally into, they want to know everything about you. So one of them have asked you about different job roles or positions offered to you. So 3 companies, what were the different job positions that were offered?
So I have always been in the field of, so I started my career with HR, and I've always been into HR, and the specific area that I've worked within HR is learning and development. So I started my career with Capgemini, where I was a learning specialist first. So that was my, entry level. And then I moved on to a more project-based kind of a, profile where I was a learning analyst. Then I moved to Novartis as the senior learning consultant. Then with AXA, I was the talent and development manager. So again, learning, and this is where I got introduced to the talent side of the HR piece. And then I moved on to Aramex. Here I'm the global talent manager. Now I'm completely into talent, so not so much about learning, but it is more about talent management. So those are the rules that I kind of explained.
Now, one of them is asking about artificial intelligence is booming in the industry. Will AI replace manpower, especially in manufacturing industry?
Well, I don't think anything can replace anything, but obviously it is a complement to everything that we are doing today. Yes, so some of the roles will be replaced for sure with all the technological advancements that are happening in the world, which means that, when some of the basic roles or the admin jobs are getting replaced, it means that we will be able to focus on more strategic jobs at hand. So to answer that question, I would say, it will not completely replace a whole, let's say, a whole piece, but it will certainly replace certain elements within that piece so that we are able to focus on the strategic side more.
Sanket is asking, I think obviously you must be doing that. Do you miss your old colleagues? And I really want that if you can share some interesting stories about your hostel life or something, maybe a party.
Okay. I don't know what you mean by old colleagues. Do you mean, college friends or, colleagues from my last companies? Okay, I will tell you a little bit. So I don't know if you had attended, the last seminar that Rahul delivered. So Rahul is actually my husband. So we were a group of, few friends. We were there in ISBM Kolkata, and we had a very, kind of a, lovely time at ISBNM Kolkata. So these were the group of people that were from PAX. So Rahul, there was Ramashish, there was Shatadru, and then there was few other people, and I was leading the branding and admission cell. So we were kind of the privileged. We used to think ourselves as the privileged lot because we were a part of the student cell, right? And we would take advantage of the pack cell, for example, sit there, chat for hours. And the culture of ISBNM, I think you will realize soon that there is no concept of morning, evening, weekends. There is nothing, anything related to that, forget about it. So I think that was the part that we enjoyed the most, actually. So there was one day that I remember that we were called for a guest lecture at 8 in the evening, and we were like, what, 8 in the evening guest lecture, what is this supposed to mean? And then we ended up going there. Of course, most people did not turn up, but we ended up going there, and we had so much fun after that guest lecture. I think these are the experiences that you need to leverage when you are when you're there on in ISBM. Try to kind of get hold of these experiences, because this will teach you a lot. Yeah.
And always remember, ISBM never sleeps. So
yeah, absolutely.
So one is asking about how fast is the growth in HRM, human resource management?
Look, if you really are comparing this with, a sales job, for example, or a marketing job, for example, I would say that the pace will be a bit steady. Like, you have to be in that job and prove yourself for some time. But I would not say that if you are the right person and have the right skill set, that you will not be fast tracked. I'm not saying that. But at the same time, you have to be patient, because you have to see the number of jobs that are available in the market. So if you really compare the number of jobs that are available in sales as compared to the number of jobs available in HR, they're not really comparable, right? So they're not the same. So that is why I think you need to be a bit resilient, and you have to really work on yourself all the time. So the fact that I was talking about, always think about how can you develop yourself, and always think about how can you stand out of the crowd. So if there are 10 jobs in the market and there are 20 people applying for it, why will the recruiter pick you up? Or if there is one position for promotion, why will your manager put you, ahead of the others? So always keep that thought in mind, and I'm sure it will be an easy path for you.
Okay. Priya is asking about, don't you think the difference between the CTC and the take-home salary these big corporate offer is a matter of concern for business graduates according to the current market standards?
I don't know how to answer that, because I'm not in India at the moment, and here in Dubai there is no kind of concept of CTC, so I don't really know what is kind of the percentage of the CTC and the take home at the moment. But yeah, it sometimes can get misleading, because when you are kind of saying that you're getting a 9 lakh CTC and then you're actually driving home, a little less than what you would expect you would, then it would be a concern. So my suggestion would be really to think about that amount that you're driving, taking home with you. So take when employees are taking your interview, remember that you are also interviewing them. So you are also looking for a fit for yourself. And if it really does not fit you, then that is not the way for you. You know, you have something else waiting for you. So you really have to take that decision for yourself.
They want to know what is second specialization. HR was first. Second
Sorry,
your second specialization in college.
Okay. My second specialization. Okay, my second specialization was in marketing. But I know the second question will be why I did not take marketing and why I took it. So I will answer that anyway. So, you know, it can sound a bit silly, but you know, I thought that I will take HR because HR meant that, oh, it is a nice office job in an AC room, no long hours, very easy life, you know. And then I thought, okay, so this is the way to be, and I will be at the corporate, always strategizing, thinking, blah, blah, blah. And then when I ended up at the corporate world, I thought, okay, this was completely a myth. So that was kind of the decision, but I'm joking. I really wanted to kind of, you know, understand, you know, the behaviors of people and also study a lot about cultures. So that's why I kind of chose HR over marketing, but I really took marketing because I had to have a second, you know, kind of specialization.
There are a few more questions. I know the time is running out. So Amrita, can we take them?
I think we can have 5 more minutes.
Okay. So Vaibhav is asking about, is it hard for a working professional to go to college and restart the life as a student again? I think he has some work experience.
Again, I think I was very, very kind of driven to do my PhD at some point, and I was really driven about it, and I thought I will do it. But I think today I'm at such a stage that I don't think I can do that anymore. But again, that depends on your personal circumstances and you know, what you want from life. So if this MBA is something that you really want to be your kind of, you know, the next step in your career, or maybe the, you know, launching pad for you, then please go for it. And if you think that this is something that you're dragging yourself into, though I'm here to talk for ISBNM, but I will honestly tell you, if you think that you're dragging yourself into this, then this is not the place for you to, you know, so think about it again.
One is asking about which specialization would be better with finance. I mean, I think it's up to you what you like.
Yeah, this is about your career goals. So, you know, if you want to be in finance and have a very specific kind of a career path, finance, then it would, you know, not really matter a lot on what is the second kind of specialization that you're taking, because obviously your whole focus will be on finance. But I think it is always good to kind of have an understanding of the other function as well, because in reality, when you are working in the corporate field, even if you specialize in HR or finance or marketing, whatever, you have to understand how the other function works. So it is always, you know, a positive that you kind of focus on the other part as well, but completely depends on you, your interest, what would you like to do.
Okay. One question is, in HR, the packages are a bit low at starting comparing to other fields. So is this true or absolutely a myth?
So, you know, it is a bit difficult to answer that question because it really depends on what level are you, you know, getting into. But yes, if you compare the same level, then I would say that it is slightly a bit lower than the other jobs, because and by meaning other jobs, I really mean the sales and the marketing jobs, because you have to understand that an element of the sales job is incentive as well, which means, you know, the figures that they do will kind of drive a lot of incentive for them, which is not the case in HR. So if you are agreeing to that fact, and if you already know that this is the reality, then it should not matter a lot, because at the end of the day, you know, if you are working your way up, it will eventually kind of be on the same level.
Jinesh is saying that he also has the same specialization, HR and marketing. So he's asking what kind of challenges he will face coming from a non-commerce background in the field of corporate world.
Yeah, I'm not from a commerce background. As I said, I'm an English literature graduate. And I don't think there is any specific challenge that you would face, not coming from a commerce background, because not having to study commerce did not have any bearing on my work experience. Because when I was at ISBM, those 2 years I was very, very honest with what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. So I studied with all my heart, and I am kind of a studious kind of a person, if you ask me. And if you're doing that honestly, then I don't think you will face a lot of challenges just in terms of that. But yes, there are other challenges that you have to kind of tackle. But this is for everyone. This is no specific challenge that I can kind of point out that happened to me because I was not from commerce. No.
And I'll take it this as a last question because the questions are coming in and I think we need to wrap it up as well. So Nikhil is asking, do you believe fintech is the next big thing in market?
Absolutely. And not only fintech, there is, medtech, there is HR tech, there is, technology is the way forward. So that's why I said, if you talk about, future things to do in the job market, it is the tech way forward. So definitely, yes.
Okay. I know every time I think the series where we have started this with alumni, the questions keep pouring in, and then I ask the students, and you please ask the other guests that we will be having on Wednesday. So guys, thank you for being such a lovely audience. And thank you so much, Amrita. I think your journey must have totally inspired all the girls who are there. And one thing which I'll be taking out from this particular thing, that if you want to grow in life, you have to come out from your comfort zone. So thank you so much for addressing our students. And it was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this session and I hope I could add some value. And guys, if you have any questions after that, please feel free to drop me a line. Maybe, Neha ma'am, you can share my email address.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Anyway, either way. So feel free to, reach out to me. And if I can help you in any way, I will be glad.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.